Our Prophet ﷺ, after completing a janazah in the Jannatul Baqi of one of the Ansar, the Prophet ﷺ spoke with his companions, and he said to them that when one of you leaves this world, when a disbeliever, wrongdoer leaves this world, his room wherein he passes on is filled with angels wearing black. And as far as I can see through the walls of his room, as far in his roads, outside his road, his whole house is surrounded by angels wearing black. And when it's time for his life to be taken, no angel wants to take his life, to pull his soul. There's no one is vying, competing. I want to have the honor of taking this person's soul. Everyone doesn't want to until Malakul Maut will instruct them that you so and so, you take his soul. And against that angel's will, the angel will pull out the soul of that person. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said in different narrations that when the soul leaves the body of a person, he said ﷺ in one narration, it's likened to taking a piece of silk and throwing that silk over a thorn bush, and then ripping that silk off that thorn bush. Every thorn will tear that silk and rip that silk, and like that the soul will experience pain when the soul is taken and pulled out of the body of that disbeliever and wrongdoer. Not only that, now the soul of that person that did wrong and disbelieved in Allah will stink, will have a stench. And the angel who didn't want to keep the soul, and Malakul Maut will instruct him, now take that soul to Allah. And then the angel will continue with that soul to the various stages of heavens. In every stage of heaven, the inhabitants of heaven will say, pass by us quickly, we cannot handle the stinking smell coming from the soul of that person. Please pass us quickly, until that filthy, bad smelling soul of a wrongdoer and disbeliever reaches the court of Allah. And Allah doesn't want to see the soul, and Allah doesn't want to speak to the soul. And then Allah will instruct His angels, take the soul, and from beyond this universe, in a dimension where there is no direction, beyond what our minds can fathom, but from that place Allah will say, take the soul and cast it, fling it back into its grave. And for millions of kilometers that soul will be thrown at a speed, within seconds it will reach its grave. And then the grave will become a pit of Jahannam. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the two sides of the grave will continue crushing that person until the ribcage on the right will force its way and pierce the ribcage of the left. And there will be a serpent in that grave. It comes in some narrations. That serpent is so poisonous, if one drop of his venom was to fall on this earth, no plant will ever grow. And this person will be continued being punished in that pit of Jahannam. And may Allah protect us. Think about that. Also, think about the believer. Rasulullah said on this occasion, the believer when he leaves this world, his room, and as far as his eyes can see, his room, his house, the roads, right around, it will be angels wearing white. And the angels will be vying with each other. I take the soul of this believer. I want to take the soul of this person that used to worship Allah. I want to take the soul of this person that took his time out to recite Quran and to make Taraweeh and to perform Tahajjud and to fast during the day. The soul that exerted itself in trying to please Allah, let me take the soul. Until Malakul Maut will instruct one of them, you may have the honor of taking this person's soul. And the Prophet ﷺ said, his soul will leave his body in such a way that if you would look at a bottle of water with a long neck, once you raise that water, eventually once you come to the tilting point, as with the same amount of ease that water flows out of the neck of that bottle, that's how easy the soul will leave that person's body. And it will have the most beautiful fragrance. And in every stage of paradise, of heaven, the inhabitants will ask, who is this beautiful smelling soul? Welcome into the stage of Jannah, welcome into the stage of the heaven, until that soul will reach the court of Allah. And Allah will be pleased with that soul. And Allah will tell His angels that accompany the soul to his grave where his grave will be a garden of paradise until the day of resurrection. And when his grave is a garden of paradise, from his grave the Prophet ﷺ told us, the door will open up into Jannah. And he will find in his grave the fragrance of Jannah. And some narration says that he will be served from the food of Jannah. And other narration says that he'll continue worshipping his Lord, reciting the Quran, standing in salah for his Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about these realities. This is what it means to think about death. What's going to be my status when I die? Am I going to be in a state that Allah is happy with me? Am I going to be in a state that Allah is pleased with me? Will my soul have a bad stench, or will my soul have a beautiful scent? What's going to happen with me? What happened with so many people that have already left this world? I have attended so many janazas. Will I be fortunate like them to die with iman, not have iman? What is my state going to be? This state of brokenness that the slave must find himself in, until he speaks to Allah and he asks of Allah, like we are asking Allah, oh Allah, allow us to die with iman. Let our last words be the recitation of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ya Allah, do not take us from this world and be pleased and happy with us. Ya Rabb, let the day when we leave this world be that day when we are closest to you and you are most pleased with us. These are the states that the believer must go in. This is how he should be thinking of death, and that's how this should encourage and urge him to prepare himself for death, for that day when he will be leaving this world. So al-Hadari says that the Salaf, they used to say that look at that thing that you love to be in if death was to come to you. How would you like to die? How beautiful would it be to die while in dying in is not a far-fetched thing. It happened to so many people. In our community, one of my father's friends, I forget his nickname, I think his name was Abdurragmaan, Uncle Abdurrahim. He was someone that was very, very passionate about da'wah ila Allah, calling people to Allah. Especially, so he spent his night and days calling people to Allah. Abdurrahmaan or Abdurrahim. And when they came to pick him up for Fajr, the morning that he passed on, they knocked on the door and there was no answer. And when they eventually broke down the door, they found that in his tahajjud salah, in his sajda, he passed away and he was still in that position when they found his body. That's in our community. That could be you and I. Would you not like to die in sajda, in front of your Lord, during the early hours of morning? If you would love that, falzamhu. The Salaf said, if you have to die a certain way, then hold fast unto that way. Prostrate a lot so that you can die in sajda. We made the example previously of the guy that was selling coffee on the train. He was passionate about Nescoffee until at the time of his death, all he could say when they said to him, La ilaha illallah, he said, Nescoffee. وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ تَقْرَهُ وَيَأْتِيَكَ الْمَوْتِ. And every state that you dislike to die in, stay away from it. Stay away from it. Do you want to die while sitting in a cinema? No? Don't go to the cinema. Do you want to die while watching movies? No? Stop watching. Do you want to die while speaking ill about others? No? Don't speak ill about others. Every state you dislike to die in, don't do it. If I'm about to do it, say, I could die. What's going to happen if I die? What if I die in a state of zina, fornication or adultery? The Prophet said, La yazni ahad, no one commits zina, fornication or adultery, except that while he's committing zina, a man leaves his body. You want to die in such a state? You don't want to die in such a state? Don't commit zina. Ya Rab. So pondering on hadith, pondering this advice, for it is great benefit for you.